Ranjit, you mentioned a litany of previous cases where India has been at the receiving end. Now, I don't want to be like a very typical football fan jumping to the R word very lightly, and I use it with a lot of responsibility. We are aware that racism is something which FIFA has always had to deal with, especially when it tries to open the sport out to countries such as India in South Asia, where we are not traditional footballing giants here. Is yesterday a case of racism, or at least implicit racism in play, where the governing body decides that, okay, these are matches which involving smaller player teams who probably won't make it to the big league and whose absence will not be felt by the larger community, so perhaps we don't need to focus on these repeated refereeing errors and bring in VR at this point?
Actually, if you look at it that way, it was not a do-or-die match for Qatar. So it was not that if Qatar was going to lose to us, they would have been out of the World Cup thing, and that would have been...
Precisely my point. Had it been a do-or-die match for Qatar, or a do-or-die match for any of the conventional football powers, whether it be Europe or the ones which are now emerging in the Middle East, there would have been a lot more attention, a lot more focus given to it. Because it's India, maybe it doesn't reflect on FIFA's radar.
Definitely, I would say the same. In fact, even our past decisions, it would have been a giant like a Korea or South Korea or a Japan getting those decisions. This would have been international headlines. And in fact, on social media yesterday, I've seen officials from UEFA and other countries, also FA officials coming and supporting that this is now at this level in this age of time of being all over the place. In fact, everybody in the stadium knew there was not a goal. Everyone on TV knew there wasn't a goal. And somehow, the three people who matter the most didn't know that. So we've got to do something about it. Now, obviously, I totally agree with the eminent sports lawyer you've got, because he's got it right. You cannot overturn a decision of a referee. But what do we do about it now? Because India is always going to be on the losing end. And that is why we need to make a stand that at least we start doing it at our home. Like he said, that we've had these decisions even in the Indian Super League. Now, keep on depending on VAR is a very, very different thing. Why? Because we can't afford it. But India being a land of IT professionals and software technology, I think we can damn well come up with our own system where it just takes AI, and you make sure that you get the right decision and the referees to help. But let's come to something else. We can keep crying about this, but we need to make sure that even this doesn't stop us. That means we need to be so good that even if the referees are against us, even if the teams are against us, we still make it. And that's what you have to do. You have to be so good that you can't just be on the edge and then always saying that, oh my God, either this happened or that happened. We've got to now wake up as a nation, and we've got to plan for the future. And when I say
one would argue that's perhaps where the Indian team went wrong, Ranjit, because one would argue that's where the Indian team went wrong yesterday, because they were very clearly rattled after this goal was allowed, and that allowed them to lapse in concentration, allowed the second goal as well. Champion teams do that. Champion teams rise above these.
No, not only that, they do not know game management at all. In fact, when the goal was scored against us, we had 9 men on the field. People don't realize that we had 9 men on the field. So if there was a little bit game management there, the Jai Gupta who was injured wouldn't have been allowed to go off by the physio. He would have made the stretcher come on, and then the substitute would have been ready and the substitute would have come in. Playing against 9 men, against 11 men, defending in your box is just asking for, it was just a matter of time getting the goal. We got the 2 men after the goal was scored. We were 11 on 11. Yeah, you saw the difference. So we've got to go a long way, not only in this game management for 5 minutes when you're 1-0 up. That's what it's about in international football.
Absolutely. But Srinivasan, I'll let you have the last word, because yes, as Ranjit pointed out, the Indian football team, the players there's a lot of scope for growth and improvement and learning from the lessons, but it's also time that as a soft power, the AIFF starts backing them up in terms of the politics, in terms of the heft they try and play. And this is something important here. Unfortunately, football is still badly mismanaged in a country, and it's still run by politicians who look at it as a retirement thing. I don't know. But as Ranjit pointed out, if this would have happened in cricket, the repercussions would have been severe. Is that the only option now for the AIF to also start gaining some weight, throwing it around and trying to back up players off the field as well?
I mean, since VAR and the applicability is the primary question here, I think one thing which binds AFC, the competition organizer in this case, is they will have to apply the same standards across all venues where this competition is taken place, right? So, for instance, India, Kuwait, Qatar, Afghanistan are playing home and away games, and all of these locations should have the ability to, host a VAR system, which is not possible, and which is probably why, in spite of the facilities being available in Doha, the VAR system was not used in the game as well. But I think I would like to go back to what Ranjit mentioned earlier. When we've had similar instances in the past, like for instance the Merdeka Cup, etc., we should have registered a strong protest at these points of time if that was not done already. And I think on the other hand, since you brought up governance and management of the sport in the country as well, there have been good things happening. For instance, there have been discussions around bringing VAR light to Indian leagues and professional football in India as well. So I think we should just wait for things that are on track to reach their reasonable conclusion. And since this game was in more ways than one the start of a new chapter in Indian football, especially considering Sunil had retired at the end of the last game, we just hope that there are better things around the corner for us as a sport.
I think that's a good silver lining to end this chat with, that if nothing else, this has gotten a lot of attention, a lot of sympathy for the team, a lot of focus, and hopefully out of this entire cloud of gloom, there is a ray of sunlight that comes in as a start for the Indian football team. Thank you so much, Srinivasan and Ranjit, for joining me with a very, very enjoyable chat which I've had at this point. Of course, Srinivasan mentioned Sunil Chhetri. His absence was badly felt yesterday in the match against Qatar. He, of course, bid goodbye to international football on the 6th of June, bringing to a close a career spanning 20 years. He spoke to my colleague Karishma. I leave you with this short excerpt.